The United States is about to be slammed by two completely different but equally dangerous weather systems that will bring total chaos from coast to coast this weekend. Right now, we have a massive atmospheric river that's already starting to pound the West Coast with catastrophic flooding potential, while at the same time, a powerful nor'easter is developing off the East Coast that could dump over a foot of snow across the Northeast. But here's what makes this situation so unprecedented. We're dealing with a dramatic pattern flip that's happening in real time. After record breaking warm temperatures across much of the eastern United States earlier this week, with some areas hitting the 80s and 90s, we're about to see one of the most violent temperature crashes in recent memory. Arctic air is already surging southward, and by Sunday, places like Florida could drop 40 degrees in less than 24 hours. The West Coast atmospheric river isn't just bringing rain. We're talking about potential for 5 to 10 inches of rainfall in Northern California, with some areas possibly seeing up to 12 inches. This is a flooding disaster waiting to happen. So, in today's forecast, I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know about these two massive storm systems, the incredible temperature whiplash that's coming, and why this weekend could be one of the most dangerous weather periods we've seen all year. Let me start with what's happening on the West Coast right now, because this atmospheric river is already beginning to make its presence felt. A slow-moving low-pressure system in the Northeast Pacific is generating what meteorologists are calling a very high-confidence atmospheric river event. The Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes is showing over 90% confidence that atmospheric river conditions will persist along Northern California through at least February 23rd. What this means is that we have a river of moisture in the atmosphere that's being directed straight at California, and it's going to be relentless. The Weather Prediction Center is forecasting 5 to 10 inches of precipitation over the Northern California coast ranges and the Sierra Nevada during the next 72 hours. But here's the really concerning part. They've already issued a marginal risk for excessive rainfall and flash flooding for the Northern California coast ranges and Northern Sierra for Monday. This isn't just about heavy rain. We're dealing with a perfect storm of factors that could lead to catastrophic flooding. The freezing levels are going to be initially high, which means most of the precipitation is going to fall as rain rather than snow, even at relatively high elevations. This is going to overwhelm drainage systems and could trigger widespread mudslides, especially in areas that have been affected by recent wildfires. The burn scars from previous fire seasons are particularly vulnerable because the soil can't absorb water the way it normally would. We could see flash flooding in urban areas, small stream flooding, and potentially some significant river flooding as all this water makes its way downstream. What makes this atmospheric river particularly dangerous is how slow-moving it is. This isn't a system that's going to blow through quickly. The low-pressure system is forecast to stall off the Pacific Northwest coast, which means we could have days of heavy precipitation. As the system eventually shifts southward along the California coast, it may tap into even more tropical moisture, further enhancing the rainfall amounts. Some areas of the northern Sierra Nevada could see 4 to 8 inches of rain on the lower west-facing slopes, with an AccuWeather local storm max of 12 inches possible. Now let's talk about what's happening on the opposite coast, because the East Coast is preparing for what could be a significant nor'easter. A deep surface low-pressure system is forecast to develop just offshore of the Northeast, and while there's still some model spread on the exact track, this system has the potential to bring heavy snow to southern New England Monday. We're talking about the possibility of 6 to 9 inches of snow across much of the region, with some areas potentially seeing even higher totals. The National Weather Service has already highlighted coastal regions from Boston down to Washington, D.C., in a heavy snow risk for the Monday timeframe. What's particularly concerning about this nor'easter is the timing and the temperature pattern that's setting up. We've had record warm temperatures across much of the eastern United States this week, with some areas seeing highs in the 80s and even approaching 90 degrees in parts of Texas. But all of that is about to change dramatically as Arctic air begins to pour southward. This isn't just a typical cold front. We're talking about a massive pattern flip that's going to send temperatures plummeting by 20 to 40 degrees in some areas over the course of just 24 to 48 hours. The setup for this pattern flip is really quite remarkable from a meteorological standpoint. We have an expanding area of high pressure that's been bringing record warm temperatures to the central and eastern United States, but that pattern is about to completely reverse as Arctic air gets displaced southward. By Saturday afternoon, the northern Rockies and Plains are going to see temperatures drop to around 10 to 20 degrees below average. By Sunday afternoon, the core of this Arctic air mass is going to slide into the mid-Atlantic and southeast. This is where things get really dangerous for people who aren't prepared. We're talking about the possibility of a flash freeze scenario in some areas. When you go from temperatures in the 70s and 80s to suddenly dropping into the 30s and 40s, or even colder in some areas, you can have pipes freezing, you can have issues with vegetation that's been fooled into thinking spring has arrived early, and you can have travel hazards as any moisture on the roads could freeze rapidly. The temperature contrast is going to be absolutely staggering. While Florida is going to see highs climbing into the lower to middle 80s on Saturday, by Sunday those temperatures are going to slide into the 60s and 70s. But that's just the beginning. By early next week, many areas even as far south as Florida could get right around or just below freezing. That's a 40 to 50 degree temperature drop in some areas in less than 72 hours. Now, this pattern flip is also going to fuel the development of that East Coast storm system. As the Arctic air moves in and encounters the warmer air that's been in place, it's going to create a very strong temperature gradient, and that temperature gradient is fuel for storm development. The wave of low pressure that develops along the cold front is going to intensify as it moves up the coast, potentially becoming what we call a bomb cyclone as it rapidly deepens. The combination of heavy snow and gusty winds could create blizzard conditions in some areas. We're looking at the possibility of snow rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour in the heaviest bands, with winds gusting to 40 or even 50 mph in some areas. This could lead to significant travel disruptions, power outages, and dangerous conditions for anyone who gets caught outside. But the impacts aren't just going to be felt in the immediate storm zones. The atmospheric river in California is going to have impacts on travel across the entire western United States. Mountain passes could become impassable, flights could be canceled or delayed, and flooding could affect major highways. Similarly, the nor'easter on the East Coast could disrupt travel from the mid-Atlantic all the way up into New England. What makes this situation even more complicated is that we're also going to have severe weather potential as this cold front moves through the southeast. The Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms from southeastern Alabama and the northern Florida Panhandle east into southern South Carolina. When you have this kind of dramatic temperature contrast, you can get strong to severe thunderstorms developing along the front. More than 4 million people across portions of at least 4 states face this marginal risk of experiencing severe thunderstorms Saturday into early Sunday. The wind is going to be a major factor with both of these systems. The atmospheric river in California is going to bring gusty winds that could approach 60 mph in some areas, especially in the mountains and foothills. These winds, combined with saturated soils from all the rain, could lead to widespread tree damage and power outages. On the East Coast, the nor'easter is going to generate strong winds as well, with gusts potentially reaching 50 mph or higher, especially along the coast. Looking ahead beyond this weekend, the pattern shows no signs of quieting down anytime soon. The Weather Prediction Center is forecasting that more Clipper systems could affect the northern tier from the northern plains into the Midwest and Great Lakes next Tuesday, bringing light to moderate snow. And there's already talk of another frontal system moving through later in the week that could bring more precipitation to much of the east, possibly including more snow for portions of the northeast. This is exactly the type of active weather pattern that can persist for weeks once it gets established. We've moved from a relatively quiet period into what appears to be a very active and dangerous stretch of weather. The jet stream pattern has become much more amplified, which is what's allowing these strong systems to develop and maintain their intensity. For people in California, the message is simple. This atmospheric river event has the potential to be life-threatening. If you're in an area prone to flooding or mudslides, now is the time to have your evacuation plan ready. Don't attempt to drive through flooded roads, and be prepared for power outages that could last several days in some areas. The combination of heavy rain, gusty winds, and saturated soils is going to make trees particularly vulnerable to falling. For people on the East Coast, particularly in the Northeast, you need to be prepared for a potentially significant snow event that could make travel extremely dangerous or impossible. If you have travel plans for Monday, you should strongly consider changing them now before the storm hits. Make sure you have emergency supplies in case you lose power, and if you have to drive, make sure your car is equipped with emergency supplies in case you get stranded. The temperature whiplash that's coming is going to affect everyone from the Gulf Coast all the way up into Canada. If you have pipes that could be vulnerable to freezing, now is the time to take precautions. Bring pets inside, protect any sensitive vegetation, and make sure you have adequate heating in case of power outages. This is shaping up to be one of the most significant weather weekends we've seen in quite some time. Two completely different but equally dangerous systems are going to impact opposite coasts simultaneously, while a dramatic temperature crash affects the entire eastern half of the country. Stay informed, stay prepared, and take these threats seriously. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We'll be closely monitoring both of these systems over the weekend, so make sure to click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.